Well, hello and welcome everyone. This is our mental fitness course based on the book Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Chamine. And we're going to talk a little bit about the HyperAchiever Saboteur, kind of dive in depth. And what I have for you today is a PowerPoint that goes over some of the aspects of the HyperAchiever. And then I'm going to turn off the recording. And for those of you who are here, we're going to have a discussion. So I'm also going to turn off the little thing that shows me here, and I'll pull it up again when we have discussion time. I think. I'm not quite sure. Playing around with this here. Alrighty. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how the saboteur develops, the characteristics of the hyperachiever saboteur, the thoughts that someone typically has if you're hijacked with the hyperachiever saboteur, the feelings you tend to have when you're hijacked, the justification lies. So those are the lies that the hyperachiever saboteur tells you to prove to you that you need to keep him or her around. And the impact that hyperachiever saboteur has on you and others, and ways that you can coach yourself to make a shift. In other words, to intercept that hyperachiever saboteur and move into sage. So let's start by talking about how the hyperachiever saboteur develops. So it starts in childhood. Most people who have the hyperachiever saboteur are naturally driven and pragmatic, adaptable, goal-oriented, and self-directed. These are sort of natural strengths that they have, and they enjoy winning and accomplishing things. But at some point, winning, accomplishing, or showing up as the best becomes addictive, and it begins to get attached to their identity or your identity. So what ends up happening is whenever you start feeling pain or embarrassment or other bad feelings, you tend to use the strategy of winning and accomplishing things to push the feelings away. And you could get to a point where you're just going to be somebody else. So it almost feels like I can be whoever I want to be, and I put on a new persona. So that's what I mean by getting attached to your identity. So if you run into someone with a hyperachiever saboteur, what you may notice is that they come across as competitive, image and status conscious. They're very good at covering up their insecurities and showing a positive image. They tend to be able to adapt their personality to fit what would be most impressive to the others. So they're almost like a chameleon. They can move in and out of different situations and sort of fit what's expected for that situation, make themselves look like whatever is expected for that situation. They're goal-oriented. They could have a workaholic streak. And they tend to be more into perfecting their public external-facing image than doing deep introspection and getting in touch with themselves. They can come across as self-promoting, and because of all this, they tend to keep people at a safe distance because they're not really being themselves. They're being the persona that they're projecting. So there is a difference. A lot of times people with the hyperachiever saboteur are actually quite uncomfortable with who they think they really are. And they have this sense of not being worthy. And so what they do, though, is because they're so good at creating a persona, they sort of live as that persona. But people sort of sense that it's not the real you that they're interacting with, and that keeps them at a distance. The typical kinds of thoughts that come up when you have a hyperachiever saboteur are, I must be the best at what I do. If I can't be outstanding, I won't bother. I must be efficient and effective. Emotions get in the way of performance. And so we tend to shove those emotions down and channel any emotional energy into thinking and action. This idea that I can be anything I want to be is kind of prevalent, like if I work hard enough. So hyperachiever, why I started with that one in this class is because it's one of my, it's my number one saboteur, and it's one that I'm very familiar with because I've been working on it a lot. And one of the stories that I can share with you, and I'll put my video back up so you can see me as I'm talking, I think. So one of the stories that I can share with you is that I have a vivid memory of being a child, and I know I have a vivid memory of where I was sitting on a couch and where my dad was in the dining room kind of looking at me. And I remember him saying, there's no reason why you can't be the best. You don't have to be the best at everything, but just pick one thing that you like, and there's no reason if you work hard enough that you can't be the best at that. And I'm sure that he meant it to be very encouraging. The way I took it was as a command. So I must be the best. And so I lived with that belief for a really long time. In fact, anytime I was in a profession, I would sort of look at all the people in the profession. So let's take coaching, for example, as a pyramid. And so the worst beginner coaches would be at the bottom. And then as you progressed up, you would get to the best coaches. And I just felt like any profession I would into, I would just work my way up and I would become the best. And at some point, after doing my personal growth and kind of working with my hyperachiever saboteur, I realized that that was actually ridiculous. And my dad didn't even become the best in his field, even though if there's a way to define it, because there really isn't. You know, you could win an Olympic gold medal. And so that does tell you that you're the best for that moment in history at that particular sport and that particular event. But that subsides really quickly because, you know, it only lasted for a minute. And then there's going to be another person getting a gold medal right behind you. So, but these are the kind of thoughts that we have, that we must be the best, that we must be a certain persona that looks very successful. And we tend to get our self-worth attached to it. So we say, I'm worthy as long as I'm successful and others think well of me. So we tend to feel this emptiness. Well, I'll get to feelings here. We tend to feel this sense of emptiness if we don't live into the persona. So we actually don't like dwelling in feelings too long if we're hijacked by the hyperachiever. You know, kind of the idea is, oh, feelings just sort of get in the way of my productivity. They distract me from achieving my goals. But sometimes someone with a hyperachiever saboteur tends to do get in touch with feelings, and they're very empty and depressed and lonely, and we don't like them. So we try to push them away and again get this feeling of winning, get this feeling of productivity. So you'll notice this person is reading a book on how to be an expert. Uh, you know, that's pretty much where all those feelings, that energy gets channeled. It's very important to feel successful. That's what it's all about. I feel worthy mostly when I'm successful. So again, worth gets attached to success. Could have a fear of intimacy and vulnerability. And if you get too close to others, we tend to put up a little bit of a barrier if we get too close to others, because we have this secret fear that if people see who we really are, they'll see how flawed we really are. And that's kind of a big, big fear for someone with the hyperachiever saboteur. The justification lies. So those are the lies that the saboteur tells you when you begin to try to intercept it. And it says, no, 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 you need me. The position that the hyperachiever saboteur takes is life is about achieving and producing results. Portraying a good image helps me achieve results, and feelings are just a distraction and don't help anything. So that is a true belief that the hyperachiever saboteur has, that has been telling you. And so chances are you believe this to be true if the hyperachiever saboteur is one of your top saboteurs. So it is really, really difficult to let go of portraying that good image. It's really difficult to look a little not put together. Here I'm taking this little strand that's sticking out of my hair and wanting to put it back very neatly so that you can't see it on video. So that's the idea. But the fact that I could joke about my strand of hair that keeps popping out makes me a little bit more authentic. And that's the important journey that the hyperachiever needs to go on, is we don't looking perfect like this guy. I mean, does he look authentic to you? He doesn't look like anybody that I would want to get to know. And that's what it feels like on the outside of a hyperachiever, is if they're too polished and too put together, you feel pushed away by them. You may feel intimidated by them. So let's go into kind of the impact on self and others. I'm going to hide my video again just for a minute, just so that you can see the slide, so I can see the slide. So peace and happiness is fleeting and short-lived in brief celebrations of achievement. So the thing about being too attached to success is you go for the success, but don't um, you don't let that celebration last. And it's funny, I think I'm going to do this for you just because I'm I want to share. I'm going to be going through this very quickly, but this is actually a picture of my daughter. And as I was using her picture, I realized, oh yeah, she does have a HyperAchiever Saboteur. So notice she's got this lovely blue ribbon on her neck, and it has a nice gold medal on it because she won an event. So what my daughter used to do though is they would all take pictures on the podium of them with their medals. By the time it came time to take pictures on the podium, she already had her medal off usually, and it was kind of onerous for her to put it back on and take the picture. Just that amount of time, which was usually not very long between her event and the awards for her event. She was already just done and over with it, and that medal was gone. She never put it on again. So usually they forced her to put her medal back on so that she would have a picture taken with the medal on. And then she would come and hand me the medal and walk away, and she was over it. And that is a very common feeling and experience for a hyperachiever. They really, really, really want to win. Now I'm going to be clicking through this really fast to get to where we were. They really, really, really want to win, but kind of once they do win, it's over and there's no fun anymore. And you could barely last a few seconds of joy for that. So um, so we really want to get away from that connection of self-acceptance and how we connect that to the next success. Because over time we lose touch with our deeper feelings, our deeper self, and our real ability to connect authentically and deeply to others. The other thing is our effect on others is others might be pulled into the performance vortex of a hyperachiever. So this is really funny, but I am giving a presentation later today, and I am sure the person who is hosting me has the hyperachiever as their main saboteur. They're polished, they're beautiful, and they've been very concerned with how I show up as their speaker. And so I've been feeling the anxiety that they have about it being going perfectly, but they can't control me. So I've been starting to worry about it. I've been starting to worry about my makeup and my hair and the background on my Zoom camera. And none of that, let me get back so you can see me. None of that is really helpful because I'm the best when I'm very natural. But if I get too worried about what I look like, then I lose my ability to connect with others. And that's how others feel. They feel that pressure from you to perform, and they also don't feel like they can be themselves around you. So then they start getting drawn in to that hyperachiever kind of frame of mind. You have to look good or you're not worthy. The impact on your team, if you're a boss, others can feel suspicious. I was coaching a hyperachiever and I would get 360 feedback from his team, and they just did not believe, no matter how he tried, he would pull them into the office for one-on-ones. He would walk around and try to have conversations with them. No matter how much he tried, they did not feel like he really cared about them. They felt like every single thing he did was to make himself look good, and it was never about them at all. And they really couldn't get over that because he still had it. He looked so handsome. He just looked the part when he was in that organization. Part of it was the culture of the organization. It's what that organization valued. Oh, here I am still messing with my hair. That little hyperachiever in me is bugged by that little strand that's sticking out. So if you're a boss and you have that hyperachiever saboteur, your people may not believe that you really have their backs and that you really care about them. And some of them may be very intimidated of you and become overly anxious in response to your aversion to anything they do that might make you look bad. What that ends up doing is it shuts people down. It makes them less innovative and more risk averse. And then they don't achieve as much, kind of paradoxically, because of that. So how do you intercept the hyperachiever saboteur? Well, first you have to become aware of it, which is the first thing we're doing. The hyperachiever saboteur kind of has this thinking you'll be happy when. So kind of just bringing to your awareness that your happiness doesn't last very long after you've had a success is one way. And just really kind of taking a look at what the costs are. The best sage the best sage power to use with the hyperachiever is empathize, this unconditional self love. I love myself regardless. I don't have to be an achiever to love myself. I'm worthy as I am, whether I'm perfect or not. So from now on, the rest of this thing, I'm just going to let this stick out like that so I can. So that's my reminder that I'm worthy, even if my hair sticks out. You want to really understand that that hyperachiever, just like all the saboteurs, actually gets you the opposite of what you want. So it actually results in lower achievement because there's such an attachment to the outcome that failure becomes unacceptable, which means creative approaches become unacceptable, and it's really hard to learn from failures because you're not allowing yourself to fail. The other thing is, if you really want to grow and self-actualize and become the best person you can be, you really have to be in touch with your own emotions. And so one great thing that a hyperachiever could do is to take frequent PQ breaks and just notice, who am I? Who am I really on the inside? What am I feeling right now? And get in touch with feelings. It's a very uncomfortable thing to do, and you won't want to do it if you're really hijacked by the hyperachiever saboteur. But the thing is that's where you're going to become more powerful, because people with this saboteur, as they grow and it becomes less intense, you start connecting with their authenticity more. And you start getting really inspired by them. And when they're not as bothered by failures, there's so much creativity and inspired. And they actually become great leaders and very inspiring to others. So now I'm going to turn off the recording. For those of you that are listening to the recording, you can maybe think of these discussion questions and just sort of reflect on them yourself. So in our discussion, we're going to talk about who you know that maybe fits this profile. When does this show up for you? Like, when do you really notice the hyperachiever in yourself? And if you have a strong hyperachiever saboteur, what do you want to focus on to intercept this saboteur and shift to sage? So for those of you who are listening to the recording, I'm going to go ahead and stop it now. I hope you enjoyed this. And as always, please feel to reach out to me if you have any questions at all.